Hello everybody, this is Graeme. Today I'm going to be looking at Sauria, a Jurassic Park survival game. Oh, wait a minute, it's a Dinosaur Park survival game, not Jurassic Park. But when I first got this game and I was looking through the components and the player boards and kind of just reading everything in here, I just kept thinking, this looks like a love letter to Jurassic Park. And honestly, that's not a bad thing. There have been many games that have tried to kind of recapture the magic of that movie before. Now, in this one, each player has a secret objectives that they need to perform to get victory points at the end of the game. But players also need to work together, well, somewhat, to survive the island. At the end of 16 rounds, the island's going to be full of lava and there are only 3 possible exits from the island. But of course you have to get them ready before the end of the game. So a little teamwork may be necessary to get them activated to make sure that you're safe, but not everybody has to get off the island. So if they don't make it to the safety spot and you do, well, it's not too bad. Now the basics of the game are you have action points to spend on your turn to do different things. Moving around the board, activating locations, like making sure the exits are ready, punching dinosaurs in the face, etc. Then of course, the dinosaurs will take their turn to chase you down and attack, with combat being done by just simple die rolls. So, will this one be like a blockbuster movie? Or will you just mistakenly rent it because it's really just a mockbuster? Let's get it to the table, see how it's played, and I'll come back to my final thoughts on Sauria. So this is Sauria set up. I will not be going over all the rules, but enough to give you an idea of how the game plays. You place all the location tiles face down randomly in their zones based on the number on the back, along with the 4 encounter tokens. In each bag, you place 4 black cubes and 1 red cube per player. These are the noise bags. So for this 4-player game, each bag will have 16 black cubes and 4 red cubes. Now each bag corresponds to an area on the board by color. All the decks of cards are shuffled. There's the item decks and the lava deck, which will be used for the second half of the game. The wounds deck, the encounter deck, and finally the day and nighttime decks. Build the dinosaur deck and add a card per player from each tier. So again, in this 4-player game, you'll have a deck of 16 cards. 4 of each tier, with tier 1 being on the top and tier 4 on the bottom. The remaining cards are placed to the side as the dinosaur discard deck. The round marker starts on 1 and the signal token starts off the round track. Each player selects a character along with their cubes and places them onto their character board. Randomly take one of the 3 objective cards for your player and keep it secret. Take all the tokens associated with your character, even if the objective card does not require them, and finally take any items that your character starts with. Each player will place their character standee on one of the Zone 1 locations and reveal it. All other components are placed off to the side. Now the goal of the game is to escape the island and get the most victory points. The game is played over 16 rounds. Halfway through the game, the volcano erupts and starts to cut off pieces of the island. At the end of 16 rounds, any character who's not made it to safety is dead. Of the remaining players, the one who has gained the most points from their objective cards is the winner. Since most of this game will be taking actions, let's have a quick look at your character board, which shows what action each player can take, including actions only your character can perform. At the start of the game, each character has 3 action points to spend on their turn, and your player board will show you how much each action costs to perform. Your special actions are usually limited, and you must spend a charge associated with an action to perform it. So for this action here, I would have to spend 1 of my action points and spend this charge to perform this action. You could also have items that have an action point cost to them to use. If an item does not have an action cost, it is only usable by using another action. For example, a weapon does not have an action cost on it, but can only be used if you use the attack action, which does have a cost. Now each round is split into 5 phases. First is the event phase, and depending on whether it's day or night as shown on the round tracker, you draw an event card from the appropriate deck. Day cards are a mix of good or bad things, while night cards are almost always negative. Some effects are instant, and some effects will last the entire round. Next is the lava phase, and this is skipped until round 11, but in rounds 9 and 10, the lava is placed in predetermined areas. And starting around 11, you're going to draw the top card of the lava deck and place the lava in the designated areas. The next phase is the action phase, and this is the main part of the game where players will be using their 3 action points to perform actions. Some of the basic actions are moving, and if you move onto a location tile, you reveal it and read what it says. You can do a quiet move, where you move but you don't draw any noise cubes. You can attack a dinosaur if one's on the board, search the location space if you know a location that has them and the appropriate deck. Plus there's some other things you can do. There are also special actions which are unique to that character, and each one will tell you the cost in action points and a charge cost, and this is going to differ based on your player. The basic rest action allows you to heal, and to recharge a charge. Certain locations will have an action on them, and of course you can only do that action if you're on that location, and some of these locations will also require power, and the power is going to be generated by yet another location that you have to find. Some of your items can have an action on them, and then we'll detail what that action does. So you'll be taking your actions, moving around the board, searching locations, trying to achieve your goals. But of course, there are dinosaurs on this island. And that's kind of the point of this game. And the main way they're going to show up is due to all the noise you make during your turn. Whenever you do an action that generates noise, you draw a cube from the bag that matches that area. If you draw a black cube, nothing happens. If you draw a red cube, draw the top dinosaur card and place the appropriate standee in the hex where that red cube was drawn for. Now there are 5 ways you're going to be generating noise. Any action that has an exclamation point next to it, you generate noise. Moving into a jungle hex or a location with an exclamation point generates noise. Certain events may cause you to draw noise cubes. Certain encounters will have you draw noise cubes. And finally, during the night, if a character does not have a light source, like a flashlight, every action that they do with at least one movement or an exclamation point will draw an extra cube. So if you sprint at night with no flashlight, you will draw an additional 2 cubes. Additional 1 for the movement and additional 1 for the exclamation point. Once all the players have used their action points, we move to the dinosaur phase. Here, each dinosaur will activate in order, from the carnivore with the most health and you working your way down the list. They perform one action: move, attack, or feed. For carnivores, the action they perform is in that order. If there is no prey, they move. If there's live prey in the hex, they will instead attack in the fixed order, starting with the bloody player and working down from there. And if there is dead prey on the hex already, this can be either characters or dinosaurs, they will feed. Now herbivores will usually just move if they are next to lava, and will only attack if they were spooked or they were attacked first. There's also a whole bunch of statuses dinosaurs can be, like distracted, panicked, aggressive, stunned, or tranked, which will all affect how they activate. So what happens if you attack or are attacked by a dinosaur? You go into combat, which is resolved by rolling dice. Any weapon that you want to use to attack a dinosaur will show a number of dice, and usually depending on the size of the dinosaur. Green has the lowest chance of hitting, and black is the highest chance of hitting. For each damage marker on the roll die, you apply 1 hit to the dinosaur. The dinosaur will also show you how many dice it's going to roll when it attacks. When a dinosaur hits a player, take a wound card and place it face down without looking at it. If you're already full of wounds, start by flipping them over for each wound that you need to take, and the card will tell you what happens. If all of your wounds get flipped, well, your character is dead. Now after all the dinosaurs have activated during their phase, we go to the cleanup and ready for the next round. If this is the end of the 16th round, the game is over and you see who is the winner. Now each character has goals on their objective cards. If you're able to achieve them, you're going to get points, as long as you survived. You survive if you're one of the 3 main exits from the game at the 16th round. The bunker, but it must be revealed and powered before round 10, otherwise it will be covered in lava. The helipad, which must have a distress signal turned on before round 13, or one of the docks that must have a repaired boat. All of these are going to require several steps to activate them so they're a viable exit location. Now if any of these locations have been enabled during the gameplay, then a player on one of those spaces at the end of round 16 has survived. From all of those survivors, score each objective, and the player with the most victory points is the winner. And that's, very briefly, how you play. Let's get back to see what I thought about Sauria. Let's start with theme and components. The theme of this one is exactly like the kind of cover shows. It feels like a love letter to Jurassic Park. And again, that being said, the theme is pretty fun. I mean, what you're doing makes thematic sense. Somewhat. I mean, your personal objectives are definitely tied to the character you select, but when that volcano starts erupting, I'm not sure I'd be continuing to do my objective to have random encounters on the island. I'm just going to be looking for a way out. So the theme works well kind of within the structure of the game. So let's go on to components. They're not bad for the most part. All are decent quality, and I like that the dinosaurs standees kind of look like the cards, and I think they're pretty decent. Now they are standees, but you do get quite a bit of them. The player boards, you know what, they're not dual layered, but they do have kind of cutouts for your cubes and, you know, for all your special actions. Now I do have 2 issues with the components. First is the size of these noise bags. This is just ridiculous. These bags are unusable, and there's really no way to mix up cubes in this bag. And it's very hard not to cheat, you know, unintentionally cheat. When you kind of go to grab a cube out, you're going to see the cubes, especially in a 4 or 5 player game when there's lots of cubes in here. I'm a little puzzled by the comically small size of these bags. The other issue I have is the rulebook. it doesn't really seem to be logically connected or flow. I almost always was able to find the answer somewhere, but it took a lot of hunting in the different areas. I do like there's a reference in the back and kind of the actions are on the back, and there's a cheat sheet for the locations. I just kind of wish all this information was in one logical place. On to the gameplay. Unfortunately, this is where the game kind of falls flat for me. The basics of the game are nothing special. You move around, search locations, and fulfill your goals. The goals themselves are a little interesting because they are tied to your characters, and kind of so are the dinosaur interactions. But what kind of puts a damper on this potential fun is twofold for me. First is the game length. The game lasts 16 rounds. Many of the games I've played, when we're waiting for the end, just kind of sitting there going, okay, when's this game going to end? You get to a point when it's too risky to try and run out and achieve another goal, or maybe your goals are no longer impossible, and you just wait on a safe space. Other players may continue, but often one or more players are just waiting for the game to end. They're in a safe space, don't care about the rest of the team or their goals. Because if you survive with 1 point, and other players have points but they die, well, you end up winning anyway. The second half of the game with a volcano kind of really pushes you to get to a safe spot sooner rather than later. Hopefully, if you're on a safe exit that's also on your goal card, because everybody has a goal to get to a certain exit, you at least get some points for that. Often the days just kind of disintegrate where people start to lose interest. If there's 3 rounds left and 1 player is left on a non-safe space, they get to play. But the rest of us just essentially pass until they die or they get to a safe space. Now, I must say this is much more of an issue at higher player counts, so maybe the game is best to keep it maybe at a maximum of 3 players. At the higher player counts, it seems just too easy to find and activate all the exits. And this kind of leads me to a bigger issue I have with the game, and that's just the randomness. Just the sheer randomness of everything in the game. And in this style of game, I recognize that's probably one of the things that this game has for it. But sometimes your goals are super easy, and you just get what you need early on. You're the hunter, and the very first tile you go to is a place to get guns. Great, well, your goal of achieving, to shooting dinosaurs just got a whole lot easier. You're the counselor and have to go to the furthest reaches of the island to flip over every single one of your objectives. Well, good luck with that. You can have a first turn encounter that puts the massive T-Rex on the board right beside you, right in the next hex. Fighting the dinosaurs can be almost always very difficult unless you find the weapons, but you still can, die and your character's out of the game. The other players can loot the body and the dinosaurs can eat it, which I must admit I found a little amusing. Now, I know I'm sounding awfully negative right off the bat, and you definitely can have fun with this game if you really get into the theme. The first time or two I played this, I really enjoyed it because we really all got into it. You can play the music in the background, but in each subsequent plays, you start to see more and more cracks in the game. You start to notice that the game feels, a little samey. Now there are ways to kind of liven up the game somewhat. You can shuffle the event and dinosaur decks together and draw from the bottom so you never know what's coming up, which definitely made the early rounds more nerve-wracking, especially when making noise. One of the other variants I liked was the fully co-op mode where everyone is working together to get a certain number of points based on your goals. To win this way, everybody needs to survive the island and achieve the point threshold. But again, that's just a variant at the back of the book. The basics of the game are decent. The main mechanisms work within the theme, but there really isn't anything new here beyond the theme. But it also kind of comes with the issues that are kind of not addressed. Randomness, the noise tokens, the lack of luck mitigation. We've seen these things kind of handled before in other games, and this one just seems to have missed the boat. There seems to be maybe one way to approach the game, and I wish there were other options like traps or decoys or maybe controlled fires to move the dinosaurs around. I wish that the items were more interesting. You have guns, tranquilizers, lighting, and healing, and a few other things, but really not much else interesting. So would I recommend this game? Ultimately, I don't think I would. This game has a lot of potential and some good ideas, but it falls in the trap of being too similar to other games, but still keeping all the issues without fixing or refining them. And I don't think the theme helps it enough to kind of raise it above that. But you know what? I really like the theme, and if you have Jurassic Park fans, it will definitely help to get into that game. The theme works well, again, with the actions, they make sense. The basic gameplay we've seen before, so in that sense, it's easy to teach. I did like all the dinosaur standees because they're all different. It definitely helped with the theme and the immersion. I like that each character was slightly different and they all had their own set of goals that are going to be randomized at the beginning of the game. There's only 3, but it's still nice to have. But on the downside, I just found the game wore out its welcome before the game was actually finished. I want to play a game where I'm engaged for the entire game. Not be done my game a few rounds before other players and just sit there and twiddle my thumbs and wait for them to go. I also found the randomness from the cube pulls to the location placement to the die rolls just a little too much for me. If you were able to achieve your goals but didn't come down to your playing, it just came down to the randomness of the die roll. I also found it pretty samey from game to game, running away from dinosaurs, trying to achieve your goals, which although varied, honestly weren't overly interesting, all kind of variations of a theme. So overall, I'm going to give this one, we'll go with this 6.5 out of 10. It's almost there. If they could just fix some of the issues that this and other games like it have had, it definitely would have gotten higher. The game has a lot of potential, but it just, I feel, fumbled in its execution. But that's it for the moment. Until next time, thanks for watching.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching another video from the Dice Tower. Hey, you want to learn more about us, communicate with us? We have a Facebook group, we have a Discord channel, lots of different ways to get involved with the Dice Tower. You can find that in our Linktree link below. So just click that, it will take you and you can communicate with us on Facebook, join our Facebook groups. There's lots of cool things that you can find and become part of the Dice Tower. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Tom Vassell.